Hello there, Cancer, Sun, Moon, Rising, and Venus. Thank you so much for joining me here today. Let's tap into the energy around your connection and the person you're focused on and see what Spirit wants to reveal today. As always, keep what resonates with your heart and release anything that isn't meant for you. All right, Cancer, let's get into your reading. So, the message that I have for you today is this, and it carries a massive shift. Let us go ahead and get into it because the energy surrounding this reading is deeply transformative. The message today centers on perception and how this person completely altered the way they see you. Everything they once assumed about who you are has been stripped bare and rebuilt entirely from scratch. A veil lifted from their awareness recently, and the version of you they now recognize looks entirely different. This is not a minor adjustment in their view. This is a fundamental rewiring of their perception. The full truth of who you are finally registered inside them, and it rearranged their entire inner world. They carried a distorted picture of you for too long, and that picture has now completely shattered. What replaced it is raw and undeniable recognition, the kind that makes a person question every prior assumption. You may have sensed a shift in their energy recently, a softening or intensity that was not there. That shift traces directly back to a moment of clarity, where the old narrative about you collapsed entirely. The first card I have for you is the High Priestess, and she confirms hidden knowledge has surfaced. The High Priestess governs what stays concealed beneath the surface, and right now those depths are fully exposed. The truth about you was always present within the connection, but their filters prevented them from absorbing it. Their own fears and projections created a lens that warped your image, and that lens finally cracked. The High Priestess reveals that intuition played a massive role here, something they felt before they understood. A quiet knowing crept into their awareness uninvited, and it demanded they reconsider everything about you entirely. This card does not surface for trivial realizations. It arrives when buried truths force their way out. The version of you they dismiss now stands illuminated, and they cannot bring themselves to look away. Their subconscious processed what their conscious mind refused to accept, and now both sides finally agree. The next card coming through is the Three of Cups, and it reveals celebration forming around this revelation. The Three of Cups tells me their changed perception brings unexpected joy, a lightness that surprises even them. Seeing you clearly for the first time fills them with something electric, a recognition that borders on awe. This card confirms the shift is not burdened by guilt. It is colored by genuine and radiant excitement. They feel like they discovered a treasure sitting in plain sight, overlooked for reasons they now deeply question. The Three of Cups connects this realization to recent conversations or encounters that opened their eyes permanently wide. Specific words you spoke landed differently this time, piercing through defenses that once deflected everything you offered. We also have the King of Swords here, and he brings sharp intellectual clarity to this emotional shift. The King of Swords confirms this is not just a feeling, it is a fully formed, logical conclusion. They analyze the evidence of who you actually are, and every piece pointed toward a truth previously ignored. This card represents a mind that cut through bias, arriving at an assessment that is finally honest. The King of Swords tells me they now respect dimensions of you that once went completely unacknowledged. Your strength and your depth registered in a way that rewrote their internal narrative from the very start. Then we have the Wheel of Fortune closing this part, confirming that this shift was destined to occur. The Wheel of Fortune says, the timing of this revelation is not random. It aligns with something larger. Forces beyond either of your control arrange the exact conditions needed for their perception to finally transform. The universe orchestrated specific events that force confrontation with truths they previously refused to acknowledge or see. The wheel confirms everything you endured while being misunderstood was building toward this single moment of recognition. Their changed view of you is permanent. It is not a passing mood or temporary wave of gratitude. The whole truth surfaces now because the timing is finally right and nothing can push it back underground. What the cards collectively confirm is that a massive perceptual shift locked into place, centered entirely on you. Okay, now let us focus entirely on your side. because what you carry inside deserves its own spotlight. Let us go deeper into this. Because your emotional landscape holds layers that need to be seen, you have been walking through a season of uncertainty, questioning whether your worth ever truly landed with anyone. There is a tiredness in your spirit beyond physical exhaustion. It lives in your bones emotionally. You poured yourself into this connection without reservation, and the silence that followed left marks you still trace. Part of you wonders if you imagined the depth, if what felt monumental was somehow one sided. That question haunts you in waves, arriving strongest during moments when you have nothing to distract from it. You trained yourself to expect less just to soften the blow, and that lowered bar became your normal. The disappointment of being overlooked taught you to shrink, pulling certain parts of yourself into smaller spaces. Your pride refuses to let you chase what does not pursue you, and that boundary costs you sleep. As a water sign ruled by the moon, your emotional currents run deeper than most can grasp, and that depth is precisely what was being overlooked. The first card here is the Two of Cups, and it reflects the bond you still quietly honor. The Two of Cups tells me you never disconnected from this link, even when distance suggested you should. Inside your chest, there remains a thread tied to this connection, and nothing has managed to sever it. You pretend detachment in public spaces, but alone, your thoughts circle back to what this bond once promised. The Two of Cups reveals your capacity for devotion runs deeper than most, and that depth intimidates you. You worry that carrying this much grants power you cannot afford to surrender, especially after being misread. There is a guarded tenderness you maintain, fierce on the outside, but achingly soft underneath the surface armor. The next card is the Hermit, and it confirms you entered a deliberate season of emotional withdrawal. The Hermit shows me you pulled back from vulnerability intentionally, choosing solitude over the risk of further exposure. You convinced yourself that isolation equaled protection. And for a while, that logic held everything neatly together. Nights became your processing ground, lying awake, replaying interactions, and dissecting tones for meaning that may not exist. The Hermit tells me you sought answers within because trusting external sources felt too dangerous right now. You built rituals around self reliance, filling gaps with independence so that needing anybody felt less threatening. Yet underneath that constructed solitude lives a hunger for recognition, the exact kind you refuse to ask for. You crave being seen without having to perform visibility, and that silent demand sits heavy in your chest. The Hermit reveals your withdrawal was never about indifference. It was about preserving what little energy remained. You rationed your emotional reserves carefully, distributing warmth sparingly so that depletion stayed one step behind you. We also have the Nine of Wands here, and it captures the exhaustion of guarding yourself this fiercely. The Nine of Wands tells me you stand bruised but unbroken, defending a heart that survived repeated testing. Every new interaction gets measured against old wounds, and that filter slows your ability to receive openly. You flinch before contact arrives, bracing for impact that sometimes never comes. And that anticipation drains you constantly. The Nine of Wands confirms your resilience is remarkable, but it also reveals how costly that resilience became. You are tired of being the composed one, the version of yourself that never fractures in public. The last card is Judgment, and it signals a reckoning unfolding inside you at this very moment. Judgment tells me you are evaluating everything, your choices and boundaries, and whether they still serve you. You sense a new chapter demanding a different version of you, one willing to release old defensive patterns. The call to transformation rings louder each day, and ignoring it requires more effort than answering it would. Judgment confirms you stand at a threshold between who you have been and who you are becoming. Your spirit knows the answer already. It is your mind that keeps requesting additional proof before granting permission. Everything churning inside you right now is preparation, not chaos. And trusting that distinction changes everything ahead. You are closer to clarity than confusion suggests, and the fog you feel is the final layer lifting. Now let us step entirely into their world because the shift happening inside them is staggering. Come in close because their inner landscape has been torn apart and reassembled from the foundation up. They are living through an emotional earthquake, and the aftershocks ripple through every thought they currently hold. The moment their perception of you changed, it destabilized everything they believed about their own sharp judgment. They feel exposed by their own blindness, stunned that they missed what sat right in front of them. A deep shame sits behind their new awareness, not guilt toward you, but disappointment aimed at themselves. They trusted a version of reality that turned out incomplete, and that discovery quietly unsettles their confidence. Their pride took a direct hit when the truth surfaced because they considered themselves emotionally perceptive. Realizing they misjudged you challenges the identity they built around being the one who reads people accurately. The first card here is the Ten of Wands, and it reveals the crushing weight they now carry. The Ten of Wands tells me they shouldered this realization alone, refusing to share the burden with anyone. They internalize every ounce of this shift privately, processing in isolation because admitting it aloud feels humiliating. The load includes regret for missed moments, windows where they could have appeared differently but chose not to. The Ten of Wands shows exhaustion from replaying scenarios, imagining how things would differ if they saw sooner. They punish themselves silently for the delay, believing the gap between then and now represents wasted time. The weight of that regret presses into their mornings, coloring every interaction with a quiet and persistent ache. Their back bends under the pressure of wanting to repair damage without knowing where to even begin. This card confirms they feel responsible for whatever distance grew because their limited view contributed directly to it. The next card is the Magician, and it reveals a powerful internal alchemy transforming how they relate. The Magician tells me they are reconstructing their entire framework, building a new lens calibrated to your truth. This is not passive reflection. They are actively rewiring patterns of thought that once distorted their understanding. The Magician shows resourcefulness in their processing, pulling from memory and intuition to assemble a truer portrait. They revisit old conversations with completely fresh ears, hearing layers of meaning they were deaf to originally. Phrases you spoke months ago suddenly land with devastating clarity, confirming exactly how wrong their assessment was. The Magician confirms they possess the tools to fully comprehend you now, and those tools run overtime. Their mental energy funnels entirely toward grasping the real you as though compensating for all the lost time. We also have the Five of Cups, and it exposes raw grief they carry over what was missed. The Five of Cups tells me they mourn specific moments, instances where your authenticity went unappreciated or dismissed. A sorrow ties itself to their awakening because seeing you clearly now illuminates how much was missed. They grieve the version of the connection that could have existed had their perception aligned with reality sooner. The Five of Cups reveals they fixate on what was lost, sometimes forgetting to notice what still remains. Their emotional state fluctuates between gratitude for seeing truth now and quiet despair for what that delay cost. The last card is the Knight of Cups, and it shows romantic devotion blooming inside their awareness. The Knight of Cups tells me their feelings evolved beyond recognition into something tender and consuming and reverent. Seeing the real you did not just change their opinion, it awakened an emotional response they never anticipated. They look at you now through a lens soaked in admiration, and that admiration borders on something sacred. Their heart reorganized its priorities the moment truth settled in, placing you at a rank they never expected. The Knight of Cups confirms devotion replaced indifference, and that devotion now colors every thought about you. They carry this transformed view like a flame shielded from wind, terrified it might flicker before you notice. What they feel is not temporary fascination. It is the permanent consequence of finally seeing you without distortion. So let us get into the action now because what this person does next will surprise you. Let us go ahead and dive into this because the cards reveal calculated steps already underway. They transition from internal processing into external motion, and that shift happened faster than anyone anticipated. The overthinking phase ended abruptly, replaced by focused determination to make their changed view visible. They are no longer content with private revelations. They need you to witness what they now understand. Concrete plans are being assembled right now, structured around creating a space where truth gets delivered directly. They started reaching out in ways that break established patterns, initiating where silence previously dominated. The frequency of their outreach increases noticeably, and each attempt carries more weight than the one before it. You will notice increased presence across your daily orbit, appearances that feel too deliberate to simply ignore. Shared spaces suddenly become strategic, and their timing when appearing carries a precision that did not exist before. The first card is the Six of Wands, and it signals a bold public declaration of their shift. The Six of Wands represents victory after struggle, and their struggle was the war against their own denial. They are preparing to acknowledge you openly in ways that people around you will immediately notice. The recognition they withheld before now pushes toward the surface, demanding expression through action rather than quiet thought. The Six of Wands confirms they plan to elevate your position in their world visibly and without reservation. People in their circle will register the change because how they reference you shifts from casual to significant. They are rewriting how they speak about you to others, correcting narratives that no longer match reality. Conversations with mutual connections become opportunities to set the record straight about who you actually are to them. The Six of Wands shows public gestures replacing private regret, turning internal transformation into outward demonstrable change. Expect invitations that carry real intention behind them. Gatherings designed to position you closer to their world. The next card is the World, and it confirms completion of a major cycle in how they operate. The World tells me an old chapter officially closed and a new framework for engaging you now begins. This is not incremental adjustment. It is a full reset of how they function within this connection. The World shows them dismantling outdated behaviors, replacing avoidance with pursuit and deliberate, intentional closeness. Energy relocates toward your direction. Now, whether that means physical distance closed or digital presence dramatically increased, they are restructuring priorities to place time with you higher on the list than it has ever been. The World confirms a completion that unlocks fresh beginning, and they already walk through that newly opened door. Old excuses that justified keeping distance have expired, and they refuse to manufacture replacements for them. Their calendar reflects the shift before their words do, clearing availability that aligns specifically with your schedule. You may receive a message different in tone, weighted with a seriousness that previous communication entirely lacked. Then we have the Page of Swords, and it introduces a new communication strategy they actively craft. The Page of Swords tells me they choose words with surgical precision, drafting messages that land exactly right. This is not impulsive outreach. Every sentence they compose gets reviewed and refined before reaching you. They study the best angle of approach, analyzing timing and context to maximize how their truth arrives. The Page of Swords confirms behind the scenes preparation, gathering insight on your state before making contact. Social media activity may shift noticeably, engagement patterns changing in ways designed to signal renewed interest silently. Digital breadcrumbs will appear before the actual conversation does, small markers indicating they are circling closer. Every move from this point serves one clear objective, and that objective is demonstrating their transformed view. The cards confirm motion has already begun, and the distance between their realization and your awareness shrinks rapidly. What approaches is not a vague intention, it is a structured campaign to show you everything has changed. Okay, this is the part where we dig into what they will absolutely never say to your face. Coming close, because the confessions locked inside their chest are heavier than anything the surface reveals. There are admissions they rehearse in private that never survive the journey from thought to spoken word. They will never volunteer that seeing you accurately for the first time triggered a crisis inside them. The realization did not bring peace. It detonated something foundational and left them scrambling to reassemble their identity. They secretly acknowledged that their old view of you was not ignorance, it was a deliberate shield. On some buried level, they always sensed your depth, but acknowledging it meant confronting feelings they forbade themselves. The confession they choke on hardest is this: they chose blindness because seeing you meant losing control. Your authenticity threatened a carefully managed emotional architecture, and admitting that architecture was fraudulent humiliates them. The first card here is the Tower, and it confirms that this perception shift demolished their inner fortress. The Tower tells me their entire self concept cracked open, not gently, but with violent, sudden clarity. They will never confess how exposed they felt in the seconds after the truth registered fully. Every defense they built over years collapsed simultaneously, and the nakedness of that moment still haunts their nights. The Tower reveals they experienced something resembling grief, mourning the false version of reality they clung to desperately. Their hidden shame is that they weaponized misperception, using a distorted view of you as justification for withdrawal. They manufactured reasons to dismiss what you offered, and that narrative sits in their gut like poison. The Tower confirms a confession they cannot verbalize, that they are terrified you may never forgive the delay. Fear of your justified anger keeps specific apologies trapped behind their teeth, dissolving before they reach open air. They privately wonder if the window for honesty already closed, and that uncertainty paralyzes them at random hours. The next card is the Four of Wands, exposing a desire they guard more fiercely than anything. The Four of Wands tells me they envision a stable, committed future with you placed at its center. They fantasize about domesticity and routine and shared silence, the unglamorous intimacy that only real partnerships hold. Their hidden wish is not dramatic or cinematic. It is startlingly ordinary, and that ordinariness terrifies them. They want Sunday mornings without performance, weekday discussions that resolve before bedtime, grocery lists written in shared handwriting. The Four of Wands reveals they furnished a life with you down to details they dare not confess. They imagined introducing you to family members who matter, rehearsing that conversation alone until the words felt natural. Their most vulnerable secret is that they already consider you permanent despite never having communicated that out loud. The gap between private feeling and public expression fills them with a suffocating and quiet shame. Then we have the Seven of Swords, and it shows the strategies they use to hide this truth. The Seven of Swords tells me they concealed the depth of their shift, performing indifference while drowning inside. They deployed deflection like a weapon, steering conversations away from vulnerability whenever the current pulled toward honesty. Their deepest confession is that every casual interaction since the shift has been a calculated act of concealment. They smiled through encounters while internally screaming the truth, and maintaining that contradiction exhausts them beyond measure. The Seven of Swords confirms they stole glances when you were not watching, cataloging details they memorized privately. They know the exact cadence of your walk, the way your expression shifts when something genuinely amuses you. These observations live in a vault they will never willingly open because opening it means admitting everything. Their final unspoken truth is that they do not merely see you differently, they see you as irreplaceable. That word terrifies them more than any other because irreplaceable means the stakes became infinite without their consent. What lives beneath their silence is not uncertainty. It is a conviction so absolute it renders them speechless. They already know you are the answer. And confessing that means surrendering the last shred of protective distance. Now let us bring this entire reading to its close, because the near future here is breathtaking. Let us see what the cards are showing today, because what unfolds from here reshapes this connection permanently. The first near future card is Strength, and it confirms that courage finally overtakes fear in this dynamic. Strength tells me the resistance blocking honest expression dissolves, replaced by a calm, fierce willingness to be seen. The confrontation with truth that terrified them before now feels manageable because their conviction outweighs their dread. Strength confirms you will witness a version of them stripped of performance, raw and present, and unapologetically genuine. The walls that separated their private revelation from public demonstration crumble, and what emerges is startling sincerity. The second near future card is the sun, and it floods this entire timeline with radiant, undeniable warmth. The sun promises that their changed view brings joy, the kind neither of you fully expected. This card tells me clarity replaces confusion permanently, and the connection enters a season of unprecedented mutual understanding. The sun confirms laughter returns to spaces that felt heavy, and lightness replaces tension that defined recent months. What was clouded between you gets illuminated, and both of you finally operate from the same honest page. Now, for advice, we have the Ace of Pentacles, and it offers grounded, practical guidance for this moment. The Ace of Pentacles tells you to treat this revelation as a seed, something requiring patience to grow. Do not rush to define what the change dynamic means. Let it establish roots before demanding visible bloom. The advice is to receive their shifted perception with grace without punishing them for the delay it took. Holding past blindness against them shrinks the space where new truth needs room to breathe and fully expand. The Ace of Pentacles reminds you real foundations get built slowly, one honest exchange placed carefully upon another. Ground yourself in the present version of this connection, not the painful version that preceded this awakening. Now, let me gather this entire reading together because the message today left absolutely nothing to question. The message was this person fundamentally changed how they see you, and the whole truth surfaces now. Every card from start to finish confirmed one thing, that this perceptual shift is authentic and permanent. The High Priestess opened by confirming hidden knowledge surfaced, truths about you that their filters previously blocked entirely. The Three of Cups revealed joy coloring their awareness, and the King of Swords added intellectual certainty. The Wheel of Fortune confirmed divine timing orchestrated this exact moment of recognition. Nothing about it was accidental. The Two of Cups showed the bond you honored never broke, and the Hermit reflected your deliberate withdrawal. The Nine of Wands captured your battle-worn resilience, while Judgment signaled the inner reckoning you currently navigate. The Ten of Wands exposed the crushing weight carried alone, and the Magician showed them rebuilding perspective. The Five of Cups held their grief for wasted time, and the Knight of Cups awakened tender devotion. The Six of Wands promised public recognition, replacing private regret, and the world confirmed a full cycle completing. The Page of Swords revealed their precise communication strategy, every word chosen with surgical, deliberate care. The Tower demolished their inner fortress of denial. And the Four of Wands exposed dreams of shared domesticity. The Seven of Swords unveiled strategies of concealment, hiding a devotion that grew far beyond their control. Strength and the Sun sealed the near future with courage and clarity, promising a season of genuine reconnection. This reading confirmed from every angle that their transformation is real, and its impact reaches directly to you. The truth that was buried is no longer underground. It is rising toward you with unstoppable momentum. You deserve every ounce of recognition heading your way. And this time, it arrives without filters or distortion. This connection is entering territory it has never occupied before. Territory built entirely on honesty and clear sight. Thank you for sitting with me through this reading. It carried immense weight from start to finish. I am sending you all the love and light, and I will see you in the next one.